Hello, hello, hello. Good, thank you. So happy. It's a very rare occasion that two of us will find them together. So, so it's really nice to be here and discuss AI. I think AI has become a flavor of the season. Everybody is talking about AI, and Ganesha spoke about so many risks. I think the risks that I see my work, sir. We do a lot of research, write our articles, publish it on the website. Somebody puts it in Chat GPT and posts it as its own. So that's the biggest risk that we are seeing in media today. Uh, but the biggest challenge with the banks is, there are multiple risks, that every CRO is handling. And I'm sure every month, perhaps there is new circular coming and adding to your risk profile. So not because it's common name, but he's just sitting beside me. I have to start from somewhere. So I will start with Amol. So my question to you is, which I have crafted for each one of you, to begin with. For AI to be trusted, it must have clear accountability. Banks must know who designs the model, who validates it, who approves it, and who takes responsibility when an AI design goes wrong. Without clear ownership, governance cannot work. How do you see this?
Yeah. Hello. Hello. Yeah. First of all, thanks. And before I could actually start, sir actually aptly mentioned there's one last line I'm just picking up. AI is not going to, simplify the life, but are we really saying that all the risks are going to taken care? No, probably it's going to generate new more risks through this. And I think that's where the question is very pertinent. And I will just take a step back before answering it directly. Now, let's look at the AI adoption itself. I don't have exact numbers at my hand, but if you really think of it, in this room, how many of you has never used any of the AI tools, any of the Chat GPT or any of the? How many of you have? No, how many have not used? So I can easily see it's 100%. At least in this room, you will have an adoption. OpenAI very recently came out with some statistics which mentioned the total adoption of ChatGPT, that the user base that they have in India, which they have achieved in last 3 years, which is equivalent to the entire internet adoption over the past three decades. Right. So which means everyone has a technology access. Everyone is using AI tools for their own personal productivity and so on and so forth. However, if I just flip the same question, sir asked a question, how many organizations are in the journey of the AI? But if I just extend that question and say how many have organizations have the live Gen AI use cases today, probably there will be many hands. They will say that okay, we are in different forms of journey. There is few live, many are into POC stage, and so on and so forth. Now, why this sudden change from a personal usability vis-a-vis the organizational usability? And I think that's a very important dimension that we need to be mindful of. That is the accountability. Sir very clearly mentioned in terms of how RBI looks at it from a regulations perspective, and how the overall who uses AI, it doesn't matter. It is the accountability of the one who is offering it to the customer. So at the end of the day, if as a bank we are offering a solution based on AI, there is accountability at a bank level, and that is where it makes a very different. I would say an equation at a personal adoption is high, but at the organizational adoption may not be always high, and that's where the dimension of the governance and the risks and the controls comes along. Because what AI brings you is, of course, the flexibility, the convenience at an individual user level. But how are we ensuring that these risks which it brings along is taken care? So that's where the whole governance on the risk and the AI, that is very critical. And as you mentioned the question, it is without even thinking that do we need to have a very solid governance and a solid policies? Of course, yes. There has to be very clear articulation, in terms of who is the owner of the use cases, or the foundation models that we are talking of, who is monitoring the risks, who is going to build the overall framework, who is going to be approving it, what is the role of the models, because we are technically talking about the models that all these AIs are built along. And the last but not the least, can we really validate it? Sir mentioned common sense as a CS, as a quadrant. What we use it in a technical language is the human in the loop. So most of our controls are built around human in the loop, but that actually puts another question, that if we want human in the loop for every control, then what is the logic of going AI adoption, right? So I think it is very critical in the whole scheme of thing, without getting too much into this at this point in time. Before you adopt at the organization level any AI adoption, it is very critical. Do you have a very solid framework, governance, policies, and who takes care of it? I'll just pause it for.
That is meaningful. Let me get another banker, Raj. I would take the same question to you about clear ownership and governance. You heard the question. Could you also add on the same?
Yeah,
Then I will move to other.
I think Amol has already enumerated a lot of things on AI governance. To my mind, I mean, for any model, not AI, to function in a good way, trust is the most important thing. So any model has to have trust. And if something which is not accountable, accountability is not fixed, responsibility is not fixed, then that trust erodes, particularly in a regulated environment. So AI governance, I see, there must be 4, 5 pillars of AI governance. First would be that first pillar would be that model design. So that pillar, the responsibility lie with the model developer, and they will be responsible for designing the model, what algorithm to use, what are the data sources. So they are responsible. The first pillar is responsible for the designing and data sources. Second pillar would be model validation. So normally, this responsibility lies with the risk department in my bank. In most of the bank, either it is with audit or with risk. So that is very important. They will validate the model. They will do the back testing, stress testing, and before they will ensure that the model is working properly before this is put to use. Third pillar, I think, would be the operational responsibility. Operational responsibility would always lie with the users. They will be responsible for the outcome of the model, whether the model is working as per the desire, what the outcome we have desired earlier, what we have set the goals for the model, whether it is working in line with that. So there, the operational responsibility lies with the users. And fourth and most important pillar would be the audit trail. So they will have to see that the model is working transparently, responsibly, and it is explainable. And this is in line with what the regulators have, asked for. It is in full regulatory compliance. So these are the four basic pillars of AI governance. Fifth and overarching pillar is approval and governance. That must lie with very senior management, maybe at board level or risk management committee of the board, which the responsibility of board or RMC of the board would be to have a proper AI governance model in the entire organization. And they will also see perhaps if models are put to use, it will go to them for approval. So this overarching pillar is where all four pillars would converge. So I think this is a broad AI governance model every organization will use. And see, most important is that AI has a lot of unknown factors. So we can't decide what would be the governance today. Maybe I am enumerating what I can see today, but it will have it how it will unfold and what another layer or pillar is required going forward. I think there are a lot of unknown.
No, I think again meaningful one, Raj, and I could see. In fact, I have been hearing, reading, and talking to people. The involvement of board is really high when it comes to the embracing AI. By the way, friends, I met Raj before the session, and I asked him about the IDBI, whether Yes Bank or RBL. You know what happened? The IDBI is the only left, but he didn't take a risk of telling me. What could have happened there. But anyway, noted your points, Raj. Kamesh, let me come to you. You come from a slightly different background than the bankers, and we have been using a lot of responsible as a word, responsible innovation, responsible AI. So how are you supporting the whole responsible use of AI in the banking sector, and what steps are you taking to help build public trust, confidence, AI driven banking services, something like that?
Um,
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Amod, and thank you so much for inviting me to be here. I agree with you. I think I am the odd one out in this entire panel, but like yet, like I think like I bring some relevance towards the theme of artificial intelligence. So, couple of points that I wanted to like add here when it comes to like how like the like talk we spoke about Reserve Bank of India, but like also the nodal ministry when it comes to is METI. So what are the initiatives that are happening and how running a very important coalition called Core AI, which is like members of the entire AI ecosystem of like 55 plus members, including SAS and Intel, who are part of the coalition. How are we like helping the government towards this? So first of all, like first major aspect which I wanted to like flag is the AI Impact Summit, which is coming in February. So what are we trying to do through the AI Impact Summit is that is like completely transition from like a AI adopter towards like a setting up a global standard, at least for the global south, right? And especially when we talk about setting the standards, like we are trying to like look responsibility, trustworthiness, and all of those angles into this. So, and how are we moving towards this, and how we are supporting is what like next point of mine comes to it is that is like first major aspect if you talk about within like the initiatives that the government is doing is that within the summit there is a working group which is working on trust and safety. And what the working group is trying to achieve is that is to come up with like a global standard or a charter or a risk risk classification mechanism which could be like used globally. So and how we and how government is have getting our inputs is that is like because we run the coalition, we kind of like provide the insights in terms of what the ecosystem really thinks there, right? Like and how the charter should really look like. The second important aspect, moving beyond the summit, right? Like summit is just going to come and go. But the major aspect is that is like trust and safety is one of the pillars of the India AI mission. I'm not sure how many people know here. India has a mission very similar to China and US. We call it India AI mission. We have 7 pillars to it, and one of the major pillars is trust and safety. And within that, like we as an ecosystem has been enabled by the government to like provide techno legal solutions or like provide grants and like provide fellowships and provide different aspects through which we can come up with techno legal solutions, not necessarily look at as he mentioned, like you can't really like keep on coming up with like hard touch regulations because like the risk keeps evolving and you really don't know it. So rather come with techno legal solutions which could help the banking sector or health sector, any sector for that matter, to adopt that and like go about doing it. So that's where like the trust and safety pillar is like moving towards and like looking into key pertinent principles and how do we go about operationalizing it. And that's where like most of our efforts are moving towards. For instance, we came up with a paper which specifically looked into the financial sector, went into the value chain, because when we talk about AI, it's a different players come into picture. It's just not only the regulated entities. So when we look into the entire value chain, everybody has that responsibility which together comes to the picture when we come to like tackling the risk. So and before I conclude my point, like third important aspect, obviously we can't like not leave this at only at the METI level, because like we have a very active financial regulator which is the Reserve Bank of India. They just concluded the work, and like obviously we all contributed towards like whatever came out as the free AI committee report. And now at least the we are trying to like closely work with the Reserve Bank of India in terms of like how do we go about operationalizing the 26 recommendations that have come out. And major aspect there is that is like the important aspect is that is like also the how the tone was set right through the report is that is like it's not completely innovation, you're looking innovation from a different lens, right? Like and also coming up with like regulatory toolkits. So I'll pause there and like
Sure.
like to like come back.
I just
Sure.
wanted to add one point to what you mentioned, because you mentioned on the question side, which is on the responsible AI.
Yeah.
And that's where I just want to twist this point of responsible AI. I'm sure all of us know what is responsible AI is talking about. But there is another dimension that I'm saying, whether the user itself is responsible enough.
Yes.
I think that is very critical aspect as well. And I'll just use one example which happened to me personally. So I think a few weeks back, I was in particular meeting and suddenly got a call from RBI inspection team. And they asked for a particular reference. Okay, just cite us from which particular circular you are taking this interpretation. Now, obviously, and we had to answer very quickly. I was in already in another meeting. So I asked someone else to, can you please quickly check and let me know which circular it is referring to? As you could imagine, the person used ChatGPT and came back immediately. This is circular. I was in a way very sure that there is no such circular which gives the exact black and white answer. But you may have to refer 3, 4 circulars and try to interpret and so on and so forth. But it gave. I was not convinced. I said, okay, fine. It doesn't look like. Okay, go ask again and get the exact circular reference. Now, when we looked at it, it opened a circular, but it was completely different or unrelated circular, and that's why we call it hallucination. Now, if I just use it as is, okay, and I would have just gone ahead quickly and went to answer, in my anxiety to the SSM team, I would have got a slap on my face. As simple as that. So, which is where I think it's a very core principle. While it is very important to build the AI solutions in a responsible way, but whether the person who is using, is it even responsible? Is there a equivalent training and understanding and maturity to the person as well? I think that's also a very critical dimension as well.
Thanks for adding that. I mean, it's good to know that even ChatGPT can reply and give answers like this. Yeah, absolutely. Noted your points. So let me get a PSU banker's perspective here, and then we'll move on. So Ravindra, thanks for again part of this conversation. I was talking to the CEO very recently, and he was very bullish on adding different digital layers, to the PSU bank, which he mentioned a term called para banking, if I'm not wrong. And a great usage of AI, he told me. So, how do you see AI creating the most tangible business value in banking today, specifically for you? And is it customer acquisition, credit growth, fraud control, operational efficiency, or core risk management?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you very much, Amol, ETBFSI. And I think, again, I have been participant in the past meeting also, but great to be here. Thank you very much for that. Within Bank of Baroda, the use cases within the risk management or the entire banking or within any organization, you will find all across the use cases of the AI. And the way we experimented within Bank of Baroda, so the greatest impact in any financial service industry which AI can create is in terms of creating the customer experience. And then if you can have your underwriting standards on that. So these two things can bring the highest amount of efficiency within the financial service industry. And that is where actually we touched, and we are actually doing experimenting on those areas. And you might have seen our actually chatbot when you go to our website, Aditi. So Aditi is a chatbot. You can interact with the Aditi. And Aditi is actually trained on the small language model. It's not an LLM. And it's controlled and how we have trained within our own data. And when you interact with a, for example, call center employee and Aditi, your experience will be far better in terms of interacting with Aditi. She will be far actually honest in terms of responses and the accuracy of the responses. And when as a customer you call to the call center, so the beyond a point, I think it's very difficult for a call center employee to move when your question will advance. So because he's trained on a limited data, and as a human, you can't collect that much information, and then you get lost. And but here is Aditi to help you. So that is one thing which is creating the impact in terms of customer experience, and lot many things are coming. Another was like creating the repository for the own employees in order to be able to serve customers effectively. So now the median age which you find within the organization is kind of like very young, 33, 34. And so is India. Our median age is at 28. But this age is they are not used to read long surplus, long guidelines, policies. They'll get bored with that. So how do you actually train them? How you make the knowledge available on tap to them so that they can use the same knowledge, get on tap, and then give customer service. So that is where actually we had Pragyan for internal employees. So they can query and it can actually search across the records and then give you effective answer as you query the chat GPT and you get responses. So that is the, so these experiments are happening on underwriting sites also. We are working how exactly we do the credit evaluation, which as a human being you might take a week to process something, or 10 days, 12 days, but it is perfectly possible for a machine to process the same thing within, say, hours, within minutes. And then as a human you can always actually override, you can always go through it. So we are not saying that you perfectly trust on the machine output and take a decision. At the end of the day, as a human being, we need to take decisions. So machine output, definitely I'll go through, edit it, and then I'll get going. So the work which is being done in a week's time may happen within hours. So again, it adds greater efficiency, and once the efficiency is added, it unlocks the value which is there. So there actually the bank is focused. So we talk about a lot in terms of like risk management in AI tools. But when you see humans, so hallucination, when we say, so can we say that as a human we don't hallucinate? I mean, we also hallucinate at times. So nothing wrong with the machine hallucinating. And can we claim we don't have our own biases? We do have, and so has the machine. And similar is the explainability. So many times you are not able to explain the human behavior, and so goes with the machine. So we control our own behavior. We have our code of ethics, which drives the organization, and somehow largely you comply with that, and therefore you contain the risk. That how do you actually operate on day-to-day basis? How do you conduct yourself so that you are seen good at large by the public? And here comes the machine. So as Raj rightly said, we need to have that framework in place. So as a human, we are better in controlling. So we have our model in mind, and we know when we are hallucinating, we can always control those biases and all. And that is our actually a model given by the God. But for the machine, you can always quantify these, and you can define in risk appetite terms. If you say the model will not hallucinate, then you are wrong. It will, because finally at the underlying way is the equation is the mathematics. And you know, when you say y is equal to mx plus c, there is another term which is error term. So it never balances. You will always have that error term in the equation which balances, and that is the risk. So what is your risk appetite to tolerate that term in terms of hallucination, biases, and then controlling that within feed it. So it will have those kind of things in place. So Raj actually well articulated across 3 lines of defense. Actually, that has to happen, and that is where we are focused. When you see our AI adoption framework, and now we are going to have the AI risk management framework, and guided much by the free AI code which RBI has come out. So that is how actually we are experimenting within Baroda.
Yeah.
Amol,
Very-
just
very-
to add what Ravindra said.
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah, you how to, because you mentioned your name thrice. So,
no, not for that. not just to thank you. Apart from the use cases which he mentioned in underwriting, credit models, and there is a very pertinent use case almost in the entire industry is fraud detection. That virtually almost all the banks in India are using AI ML based fraud detection models, and they're working so fine. We are using it since last 2-3 years. In fact, SaaS is helping us to make it better.
Right.
And the fraud detection, because of it analyzes the behavioral pattern of the fraudsters. So the reported fraud numbers have come down sharply. I mean, I will use exponentially in last 2 years. The reported fraud numbers have come down sharply. So that is, I think, perhaps it's a low hanging fruit in banking, and most available use case for AI is fraud detection.
Understood.
Thank you.
Understood. Thanks for adding that. Martin, let me come to you. We spoke about different aspects of AI by now. Again, you come from a tech background and providing solutions. So as Indian banks begin to operationalize AI governance, they're looking at how technology can help implement these frameworks practically and not just conceptually.
Yeah, I mean, AI does not work in vacuum, right? So obviously, these models need to be put in place in a orchestrated way, right? So in that sense, more and more, besides discussing the validity of the model or the appropriateness of the model, etc., is also about understanding how you actually operationalize those models, how you manage the model life cycle, in the sense that model needs to be monitored, as I already mentioned in the panel. I mean, there are the 4 pillars, right? Which means that you have to have the proper systems to actually manage those 4 pillars, right? And support the process across. I mean, there's a lot of publication in terms of should we use, should we not use, is it valid, is it not valid? There's not that much publication about what should be the right system to make the models work. But in reality, this is coming as well, in the sense that we are looking at how we provide the models the right data. I mean, one of the key things that it was not mentioned yet, but everyone has it in the back of the mind, is that the model will perform as good as the data that was provided, right? So one key aspect is to ensure that you provide the right data, you have the right data to support these models. I mean, they could be AI or not, but at the end of the day, they base their algorithms and they base their answers in the data that was supplied, right? So controlling the data sources and understanding that if those data sources are the right ones and how you trust those data sources, providing the data sources to be available to the models at the right time, and obviously having that orchestration. So you put in the models in the right place in the process. I mean, the chatbots, but then when the chatbot finishes, you have to have the next action, right? So which means that you have to have, let's say, traditional systems supporting the process overall, right?
Sure, relevant points, Martin, there. So, Bharanji, let me come to you. I think thanks for your patience. In your view, where is AI being adopted the most within risk management functions itself, and how are you updating your existing policy governance framework to accommodate AI-based use cases?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. It's very interesting, actually. I have worked earlier with commercial banks, including Amol is my colleague's colleague. So I will just tell it's in fact the risk management is much more complex in financial institutions, especially project financial AFI like us. I'll tell you where actually, by the way, our AI adoption policy has been approved actually already by the board recently. I will not say we have implemented very big way. We are experimenting like other established institutions. We are also, if you take the entire life cycle, project life cycle, public information says, World Bank takes actually anywhere between 12 to 18 months to approve a project, right from initiation to approval and sanctioning and disbursement. We have actually brought it to 3 to 6 months time. See, our ticket size is, average ticket is above upwards of 1,000 crores of rupees. You can understand the complexity. We do very complex projects in power, road sectors and all, very complex, tunnels, so on and so forth we do. Now, in the first stage is actually what we are implementing is, project preparation stage, for example. So one is actually to bring the operational efficiency, bringing it from, say, 6 months time to this one. See, there will say a particular project could have, a greenfield project actually would have some 15 SPVs are there. So analyzing the balance sheets of that and various, unstructured, structured data. So that's where we are exploring actually some of the ML tools actually so that it will help us to do the basic things. And, later on, like sir was telling, Ganesh sir was telling that, using common sense world about actually. That is the first place. So second place is, each one would have, very complex financial modeling is required actually. Because each one would have different cash flows and very complex, like 15 SPVs example as study. So that's where, our analysts spend a lot of times, they have been. That's where, some of the language models we are trying to use so that, it can pick up and then, do the modeling and also bit structuring also second area where. Third thing is legal documentation. This is very complex actually. You would have multiple stakeholders, multiple types of agreements actually, standardizing the legal documentation. Any adverse clauses we have, it can, the generative tools there, can pick up and then give to us. That is one third area we are looking at. Fourth and very important area is ESG, because for us, we have very long-term projects. We fund 15 years, 20 years support cycle. Right? So ESG is very, very critical for us actually. One is ESG due diligence. And second thing is, being a development transition, we have a mandate to measure the impact of attack. And what are the emissions cycle? We are trying to use some of the IoT tools actually to measure them, and then the real time can you pick it up and then do that. So we have engaged with some of the top, consultants here in this area. Last but not the least, very important thing is these projects are life cycle, so it will have 15-20 years. So I need to monitor it on an ongoing basis. All the conditions precedents to be monitored, and project performance, project status. This, we are trying to use some of the agentic tools actually, so that in a real time basis, what is the project performance, can this is the area. And we have also done internally within risk management actually. My colleague is also here from industry research. So we have developed, a tool where actually by collecting the data actually from various sources, like, NHA is one source, National Highway Authorities Limited, then power sources, and just use tools, we scrap lot of, we scrap data actually, and then based on that, we are testing it. Like it should be a responsibility, like Amol was telling, responsibility. We are not still using it, but testing it. We have a lot of states-wise analysis. We have projects we have done, sponsors-wise analysis actually. If you see, say based on sponsor and this thing, we feel that this could be a predictability of this, there is a probability of delay in this project is higher. But contrary to that, no, the model gives completely opposite time. So over a period of time, once we refine it, actually, we want to use it in our predictor regime. These are the areas broadly we are testing.
No, very, very relevant and extremely meaningful. Imagine the banks or the NBFCs or the new age fintech companies obtain so much data while lending even 5,000 rupees to a retail investor. I think they almost extract all the phone data that he has. Now, this man is lending thousands of crores. So he has to also see जो रोड कोई lend कर रहे हो रोड बनेगी कि नहीं बनेगी बनेगी तो चलेगी कि नहीं चलेगी Amazing points there, Bharan. Thanks for adding that. Now let me add speed to my next layer of questions and start with you, Amol, from this side. So we spoke a lot about AI, and the governance and different aspects. Now the question very specific is who should own AI and model risk governance in a bank, and how should responsibilities be divided across the first, second, and third, fourth lines of defenses?
Yeah, I think it's very critical. Now, who owns AI? I think it's the organization who owns AI, right? Because you will have, if you really look at it, you will find every function within the organization will have their own some use cases. So it's not that there is one function who will be the owner of it. However, I will just want to make a point, and it is very critical. How we are building this AI ecosystem within the organization is equally more critical. Are we saying that we're going to obtain all the vendor solutions? So what's our strategy of AI implementation? Are we saying that, okay, look, I will build on my in-house platform, I will get one of these foundation models, I'll build my in-house platform, and on my platform I will start building my capabilities in-house? So that's a completely in-house model that one is talking about, where you may want to obviously build one centralized team who will be building it, and so on and so forth, as a, I would say, first line of defense. However, there is another model that can work, wherein one may want to say that, look, across the organization, every function is free to go and obtain any SaaS-based vendors, not SaaS, but the SaaS-based AA, SaaS-based vendors, and have their own deployment in their niche areas, because every vendor will have their own specificities. Now, these are the two different models in which it operates, and both will need to have a very nuanced governance and a control mechanism in and around it. Because on one side, when you're building it centrally, there are a lot more aspects in terms of the whole of responsible AI, control, monitoring, fairness, explainability, so on and so forth, that can be built in-house. Because let's understand very critically, responsible AI is not an afterthought. It is something needs to be built ab initio. It has to be built when it is being built. So it's not something that, okay, I will build a solution and then I will think, how do I test it? So it's not something that can work. So it is equally critical to involve all the stakeholders. Now, if you are doing the similar situation for any of these external vendors, with due respect to everyone, it is even more critical that do we have enough data, and do we have enough trails that we will get from the external vendors when we are building any of these solutions, and whether my auditability, traceability, validations can be done. So I think that's a very important aspect of it. But I would put it, this would be built typically within the tech teams or digital offices and so on and so forth, what we will call it as a first line of defense. No arguments on this. Where the second line, obviously it has to be within the risk team. Now, generally, at least in India, and my recent interactions with a lot of global banks as well, most of the time this risk management part is being done through the model risk team. Now, why model risk team? Because AI models are largely driven through the various models to it. Now the foundation models are on top of it, and so on and so forth. But it's not. Are we saying that we have only model risk is the only risk that comes along in the AI implementations? No, there are. You have vendor risk, you have outsourcing risk that's coming along, you will have operational risk. What happens in case the AI goes rogue? Do we have any fallback protocol? What if so you have operational risk aspects associated with it, you will have vendor risk aspects associated, you will have tech aspects, and so on and so forth. So there are various ways one can manage it. Typically what we have seen is the model risk team is one who fronts it, who drives this whole initiative, which will coordinate with the rest of the risk folks and takes it up. And third line obviously is the auditors, who will have to again engage into it. What is the process, what are the policies, what are the controls, how is the demonstration that we do, how is the validation exercise is being done, do we have enough ammunitions to demonstrate and explain what we have done? Because that's the biggest issue that we face in any of the AI adoptions and the implementations. So I think governance wise it is very clear in my mind, at least in terms of how it needs to be segregated.
Yeah. Sure, after listening to three levels of defense and what Ganesh sir said, it's not easy, it's tough. That's what has been emphasizing. So time is slightly short, but we'll take quick 2 minutes. Let's be very, very specific with each one of you. Kameshji, you spoke about also, India AI Summit impact some time back, but you're closely part of it. So how you're going to build responsible and trustworthy AI team there in your, AI Summit going ahead?
So going ahead, I think various ways through which we can contribute to the summit and to the aspects, right? So A is that is like we have like the summit has opened up a venue for doing such conferences like this, which kind of like contributes eventually to the working group, whatever the working group is going to come out as a report. And in addition to this, like what is really going to happen is that is like this conversation is going to like move just not from India to global, right? Like when the AI summit is going to happen, India is now put on the map, like where the entire globe is going to be like around here. And we can and also when we talk about these risks and like various aspects within the financial sector, they are not just only pertinent to India, and we need global solutions, right? Like, so it has to be something like much more like broader in nature. So because when we talk about the ecosystem is just not Indian ecosystem, right? Like some of your players within the value chain is across the globe. So like bringing everyone together and like having something like interacting with the global viewpoint is something that we should be like looking forward when we go for the summit. Moving beyond that, I think like major aspect that is needed through this is that is like we don't need some standards which are like very different from what the globe is thinking at this point of time, but what we really need is that is like how Indian viewpoints or Indian constraints and conflicts can be actually like voiced, so that whatever the standards that are like developing across the globe also takes care of the the socioeconomic conditions of India, so that it's not too different from it. So that's a major like ask would be from the summit, especially when it comes to risk safety.
Sure, noted your points. Martin, let me take your expertise specifically from a global perspective. So from global experience working with regulators, large banks and supervisors, how are you leading institutions operationalizing? I mean, how are leading institutions operationalizing MRM and AI governance and enabling, enterprise-wide frameworks in you?
So it's I think pretty much every institution around the globe is working on the topic. Some institutions were already quite advanced on managing models. Obviously, managing credit risk models is something that started already many years ago. There's regulation on that already for a few years. More recently, some of the regulators expanded beyond credit risk models. So to say that there are a number of banks that have already well-established frameworks to manage the model lifecycle, right? And what they are fundamentally doing is expanding those frameworks in order to bring the AI models. Now, there are obviously specifics around the AI models. I mean, there are characteristics of the AI models that need to be taken into consideration. So the framework needs to be expanded. But as you also probably know, there are a number of publications a number of discussions as well on how you should organize those frameworks, how you should organize the KPIs to manage the process, right? So in to a large extent is an expansion of what was already being done with the traditional models, and the idea is obviously to take more synergies of that process, making sure that the framework is actually expanding. Because at the end of the day, a model is a model, right? And at the end of the day, what you want to be sure is that you are using the right model at the right time, and that everything derives from that, right? So in that sense, I think there's a lot of experience already in place that could be used to accelerate the process.
Sure. Ravindraji, I mean, the question that I have specifically for you is advanced modeling techniques such as AI and FI are now being used in many core banking functions. Every bank is exploring its own path with new AI use cases. How is it? How is the response to this?
So I think the response is quite exciting actually as we build on the AI and we solve many problems within the banking space. So we see a lot of use cases actually as across the entire banking, entire field. You can always innovate and bring in those efficiencies. So that is what we are doing. The core at it lies like we were talking about, like Amol talked about, for example, when you are designing something the security has to be by design. It cannot be afterthought. And therefore, when we say responsible AI use, so it's like first line, second line, and then all of us actually come together and ensure that the security is by design while actually putting in place those kind of products. So those kinds of actually the expertise which is required within the organization and for us, it has been building those skill sets in terms of first line, second line, and third line. So normally you will see when the innovation comes, the first line actually adopts very fast, and then the second and third line has to catch up, and that has been that game. But it's purely highly mathematical, which is the core at the AI when you talk about it, and we really require those skill set to understand it in terms of like managing those risk appetite and in terms of like governance also. So it cannot be like first line of defense, for example, or business having all these three functions. And as Martin said, the model is model, and model has to be governed in a way we have been able to use. So therefore, absolute ownership of the model has to be with the risk management, because that is the independent function actually, and which can really take care of it. If it is in the hands of the business on the first line of defense, I mean, it may go haywire, or because it is a conflicting role with the first line of defense. They have to do the business with the same model, and therefore the parameters of the model may be changed, and that brings the conflict of interest, and therefore it has to be with the independent function. So the core of it is actually to ensure that we responsibly develop the AI, and that can only happen when the security is by design, whether it is the role of the CISO, CRO, CTO, or any or the compliance function. So while we are designing, the compliance has to also ensure that we are following the guidance which is we have received from the Reserve Bank of India or from the India AI mission, and lot many documents are there from the Niti Aayog also on that. So compliance role will be to see to it that we follow all that guideline, and risk will be the absolute owner of the model and will be actually safeguarding the output in terms of the risk appetite, which is actually defined at the board level. And audit again comes to actually check all those logs that the model works as defined by the board in the policies. So that is where actually we see, yeah.
No, sure. I think noted your points. As quick as possible, Raj and Bharan, I will take one question to both of you. Simply, we discussed a lot in detail about AI, how the importance and everything is. But what are the major challenges as a banker do you see in embracing AI?
Amol, you've given me 2 minutes. Allow me one more minute. I want to be slightly sensational. Let me throw a number. The total value of services which are ready for disruption through AI worldwide is $55 trillion. even AI in the next 5 years is going to disrupt, say, 20% of it. It is $10 trillion globally. If we take India average, it will be about $50-60 billion for the industry as such. We are part of services. So for disrupting and getting pie of it, I will face all the challenges, whatever comes. With this disclosure, let me come to few of the challenges. See, I'll bifurcate the challenges into two parts. First is internal. For legacy banks, the major challenge, internal challenge, is their legacy infrastructure. See, the core banking system was designed 25 years back as a monolithic system. It was never designed for billions of transactions throwing away to the core system. So any model, see, most of the models are sitting outside the core. Core has become just a laser. So aligning any model, be it AI or normal statical model with core banking system, is a challenge. So that is the biggest challenge. How to associate your AI models with the core. That is number one. Second internal challenge is of a skill set. Indian banking system has a large workforce. It is very talented, but otherwise on the traditional model. They need to be a skilled, uh, skilled. I mean, a skill also, and to change their mindset to adopt the AI models. That would be the second challenge. And I will also enumerate three external challenge. I think a regulator is not there, but one of the major challenges is multiplicity of the regulations. You have METI guidelines, you have SEBI guidelines, you have RBI guidelines. So there are multiplicity of regulations which are coming. I think with the recent approach of our pre-AI recently, part of it will be solved. I mean, the multiplicity will be solved. The other challenges are data privacy. See, India has recently come with a very, very stringent data protection law. So how to imbibe those stringent law in our AI governance and AI models will also be a challenge. And then there are certain model level challenges, like model may become biased. I think Ravindra has already spoken about it in a more. It may be biased. It may be a black box. May not be. It has very less explainability. So there are a few of the challenges which may come over, which we can say as of now. The new challenges may come, but for 10 trillion pie world over and about 60 billion here, we'll overcome all the challenges, whatever comes in our way.
Yeah. So let the god of AI solve the problem of AI. Yeah, Bharanji, please quickly. Yes, on the challenge.
Most of the points actually I feel agree, but only one point I feel that last 20 plus years I've been risk management. This classic 3 lines of defense model will not work here actually because they are first line of defense or even second line of defense also implementing tools. They're continuously evolving. Right? See, in a classic line of defense, say a war model is there. It is well tested. It is implemented. I go and test it actually. But here it's not like that. It is evolving, learning, and everyday basis. So second line that becomes very blurred at the line between first line and second line. That is one thing we have to completely dispense with. That separate approach is required here. Second challenge is like he also mentioned. Absolutely, there are no skill sets actually. This panel department and nobody understands it actually. We need to really. I don't know how we are going to do that actually. That is the biggest challenge I feel. Third thing is actually when the board level committees actually are committees for models who are approving that. No, I don't think anybody understands it correctly. What they are approving also in the expertise is absolutely not there. I think these are the supplementary challenges.
Yeah. Sure. I think, okay.
I wanted to-
as possible, Kamesh.
Yes, just wanted to add to the challenge bit. Like I think they covered everything. One major aspect is that which is universal, not only to financial sector, is availability of data.
Absolutely.
So that's a problem. Quality data is there, but quality data, especially when we are talking about PSU banks which have merged, which doesn't really have that kind of a clarity in data.
Right.
It's difficult to go about it. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Kamesh. Thank you, Martin, Ravindra, Raj, and Bharan, and Amol for sharing those meaningful thoughts. And thank you so much for listening to us very, very patiently. Thank you.